If you think some people judge others too quickly, if you believe underdogs rise when the world least expects it, then hit that subscribe button right now, because today's story is about a boss who mocked the black daughter of a simple mechanic, and dared her to fix an engine even his elite engineers couldn't touch. What she revealed next, it didn't just silence a room. It changed everything. Amara Johnson had grown up with grease under her fingernails, the constant smell of diesel stitched into her clothes, and the rhythmic clank of her father's old garage filling every corner of her childhood, yet nothing about her small-town roots prepared her for the suffocating glass walls of Synergy Motors, the most prestigious automotive engineering firm in the entire East Coast, where executives glided through the halls like royalty and interns like her were expected to keep their eyes down, speak softly, and never act like they belonged. But Amara, 24 years old, confident, brilliant, and the only black woman in her department, refused to shrink, even when her supervisor, the notoriously arrogant and dismissive Victor Hale, made a habit of calling her mechanic's kid instead of her name, as if her background made her inferior to the engineers who came from Ivy League pedigrees. But everything shifted the day Synergy Motors brought in what they called the Impossible Engine, a prototype power system imported from a European competitor that no one, including the company's top specialists, could diagnose, let alone repair. Tensions ran high, executives whispered anxiously about losing a multi-million-dollar contract, and Victor, desperate to deflect his own incompetence, suddenly turned to Amara during a tense meeting and sneered, "Since you're so proud of your little garage heritage, why don't you take a crack at it? Consider it a dare," sparking laughter among several coworkers. But Amara, calm, unreadable, simply walked toward the sealed glass chamber where the engine was kept, the room falling silent as she entered, because what no one knew, what she had kept hidden since she was 16, was that she had once worked on the original blueprint of this exact engine under a pseudonym for a secret international engineering competition her father had helped her enter, a blueprint she herself had improved and refined, but never claimed credit for. And now, standing before the humming experimental machine, she felt every suppressed memory stirring. She placed her palm gently against the side panel and whispered under her breath, "So it made it all the way here." And as the hours passed, she worked with precision, rewriting diagnostics, rerouting circuits, and uncovering flaws that had baffled entire departments, while Victor outside the chamber grew visibly tense, his arrogance draining with each passing minute, because although he had dared her to fail publicly, watching her work with skill far beyond what he expected began to unsettle him deeply. Then, near midnight, when all executives had returned to witness what they assumed would be an embarrassing meltdown, Amara pressed one final command on the interface, stepped back, and the engine roared to life. Smooth, powerful, flawless, eliciting gasps from everyone crowded behind the glass. But she didn't gloat, didn't even smile. She simply wiped her hands on a shop rag she always kept in her pocket and said, "Next time you want something fixed, ask properly," leaving an entire room stunned while Victor, face drained of color, realized this moment would come back to haunt him in ways he couldn't imagine. The next morning, Synergy Motors buzzed like a hornet's nest shaken awake, rumors spreading across departments about the intern who revived an engine a European task force had labeled unrecoverable, and while some whispered admiration, others whispered envy, none louder than Victor, whose ego had taken a blow so devastating that he spent hours in his office pacing, plotting, and rehearsing ways to discredit Amara before the executives could give her the recognition he feared she deserved. And when the CEO, Evelyn Stride, a sharp-eyed woman known for her intolerance for mediocrity, requested a full report, Victor clipped Amara's role down to a few vague lines, intentionally omitting her breakthroughs and trying to frame the success as a team effort. But Evelyn wasn't naive, and when she noticed the discrepancy between the security footage where Amara worked alone for hours and Victor's fabricated narrative, she summoned both of them to the executive boardroom, where she asked Amara directly how she repaired the engine. But Amara, loyal to her upbringing and taught by her father never to brag or seek credit at another's expense, simply replied, "I analyzed it like any machine, piece by piece," sparking a faint smile from Evelyn, who sensed there was far more beneath the surface, though Victor interjected sharply, saying, "It was a one-time fluke, luck at best," which drew uncomfortable glances from the board, especially after Evelyn retrieved a second device from under the table, a smaller, encrypted prototype engine that Synergy had been trying to decode for weeks, and placed it in front of Amara, asking, "Could you analyze this as well?" While Victor nearly choked on his breath, Amara hesitated, not because she couldn't do it, but because working on it meant revealing skills she had always kept hidden out of fear. Fear of attention, fear of jealousy, fear of being used by corporations the way prodigies often were. But as she touched the device she saw flashes of her father teaching her late into the night, telling her she had a gift that could change her life if she had the courage to embrace it. So she inhaled, opened the device, and in under 15 minutes delivered a complete breakdown of the malfunction. the design flaw, and the missing patch code, leaving the board stunned into silence, though Victor erupted in frustration, shouting accusations that she must have stolen proprietary data or secretly accessed restricted files, causing Evelyn to raise a stern hand and say, "Enough, your insecurity is showing." Yet Victor wasn't finished. Desperate and reckless, he stormed out of the meeting and went straight to HR, filing a fabricated claim that Amara had illegally tampered with systems she had no clearance for, triggering an internal investigation that not only placed her internship at risk but also threatened to blacklist her from the engineering industry entirely. And that night, alone in her apartment, heart pounding with fear and anger, Amara called her father, who answered with his familiar calm voice, telling her, "Baby girl, when people fear your brilliance, they'll try to bury it, don't let them," words that ignited something fierce in her. So instead of retreating, she prepared to reveal the one secret she had never shared, one that would not only clear her name but turn the entire company upside down. The fact that she, under the anonymous codename AJ Nova, was the original designer of the European prototype engine itself. The following week, the entire company gathered for the internal hearing, a tense and formal ordeal where Amara sat alone on one side of the long polished table, facing the HR committee, Victor, multiple department heads, and even Evelyn Stride herself, all waiting to determine whether she had violated company regulations. And when Victor presented his doctored files, security logs, and condescending narrative portraying her as a lucky amateur, Amara did not flinch. Instead, when it was her turn to speak, she calmly slid a flash drive across the table and said, "This contains timestamps, emails, drafts, and submissions from the international engineering competition Novatek held 8 years ago, the competition that produced the blueprint for your impossible engine, the blueprint you purchased secretly from their archives last year," causing murmurs to ripple through the room. But she continued, her voice steady. "The designer who created that blueprint was registered only under the initials AJ Nova. Those initials stand for Amara Johnson, me." And as she opened the folder on the overhead screen, displaying her original 3D models, code signatures, and even a video of her 16-year-old self explaining the prototype's heat regulation algorithms, the entire room shifted from skepticism to shock, especially when Evelyn demanded confirmation, and Amara displayed the winning certificate, still bearing her father's old garage address as the contact point. Victor, jaw slack, muttered, "Impossible." But his unraveling didn't stop there, because the HR director then revealed that the security logs Victor had provided were forged, something uncovered during their own quiet inquiry, and suddenly the tables turned with ruthless speed, leading to Evelyn announcing Victor's immediate suspension pending termination review while turning to Amara with a very different expression. Respect. Yet the biggest twist came when Evelyn revealed something none of them had known, that Synergy Motors was on the brink of launching a new global research division dedicated to next-generation engines, and she wanted Amara, not as an intern, not as an assistant, but as the lead systems architect, a position that would make her one of the youngest senior engineers in the company's history. Though before Amara could answer, the boardroom doors burst open as a European delegation arrived unexpectedly, including Drive Leinert, the director of Novatek's original competition, who announced that after reviewing their archives and discovering that the teen prodigy AJ Nova had never claimed her winnings, they were here to formally deliver the prize money, $250,000, along with an invitation to collaborate on their next International Design Summit. The room went silent as all eyes turned to Amara, who took a slow breath, remembering her father's words, remembering every insult, every doubt, every dare meant to humiliate her, and she rose from her seat, thanking Novatek's director before turning to Evelyn and saying she would accept the lead architect position, on one condition, that Synergy Motors partner with small community garages and trade schools across the country, creating pathways for talented kids who, like her, grew up without prestige but not without brilliance, a request Evelyn accepted without hesitation. Meanwhile, Victor was escorted out of the building, his downfall complete, while employees who once laughed at Amara now watched her with awe. And that evening, as she stood outside the company headquarters with her father waiting beside their old worn-down pickup truck, he wrapped an arm around her shoulders and whispered, "You didn't just fix an engine, you fixed your future." And Amara, looking up at the towering glass building reflecting the setting sun, smiled and whispered back, "No, Dad, I finally turned it on."